Welcome to the deep dive. We're tackling a really core element of professional life today, how teams actually work. The psychology behind great collaboration.
Exactly. It's not just about throwing people in a room together.
Right. It's about understanding those hidden dynamics that
Yeah.
really drive results.
Precisely. We're going to dissect the key psychological principles that make teams effective. And this isn't just, feel-good stuff.
No, it's fundamental.
It's about the real drivers of things like productivity and innovation.
And our guide for this exploration is understanding team dynamics and improving collaboration. Self-sensei. Think of this deep dive as your shortcut, you, the learner, to getting those crucial psychological nuggets for building and being part of high-performing teams. We're after those key takeaways, the surprising bits that make you think,
Yeah, without getting bogged down in academic speak.
Exactly. Okay, so let's unpack this. Psychologically speaking, what are team dynamics really?
Okay. So at its heart, team dynamics covers the whole spectrum, behavioral, psychological, social interactions within the team.
Right.
Everything from how people communicate, how decisions get made, how conflict is handled, roles, that feeling of connection, cohesion. And what's really interesting, it's not fixed. These dynamics are always shifting, evolving as the team interacts and deals with, internal stuff, external pressures.
Shifting and adapting, that makes a lot of sense. A team's vibe isn't static. Now, you mentioned a really key difference between a team and a work group. Why is that distinction so critical?
It's absolutely fundamental because it boils down to interdependence.
Good.
In a real team, the combined skills, the knowledge, the abilities they produce way more than individuals could alone.
Synergy.
Exactly. There's high interdependence.
Yep.
Planning, solving problems, making decisions, reviewing how things are going. They need each other.
They need each other, got it.
Sure.
So how's that different from a work group then?
Well, a work group is more about people getting together to share information, maybe make a few decisions here and there.
Right.
But most of the actual work, it's done independently. Interdependence is low. They don't fundamentally rely on each other for their main tasks.
So there's cooperation, but not that deep integration.
You got it. Cooperation happens, but that real deep meshing isn't there.
So when should an organization actually decide to form a team instead of just having a work group?
That's a vital question. Several things to think about. First, how complex is the work? If it needs lots of different skills and perspectives working together closely.
Team's probably better.
Likely, yeah. Also, you need a clear shared goal, something everyone's aiming for together.
Makes sense.
Then there's that interdependence piece we talk about, if success really depends on members collaborating and relying on each other.
Team structure.
Team structure. And finally, resources. Teams need more coordination, more communication effort. And it's worth noting, especially with bigger teams, you can run into something called process losses.
Process losses. What's that? Like inefficiency?
Sort of, yeah. Imagine 10 people in a meeting, but only 3 are really brainstorming. The time spent getting everyone there, coordinating without actually using everyone's input effectively. That's a process loss.
It's like too many cooks.
Exactly that idea. And getting this wrong, calling a group a team when it's not, or vice versa, that has consequences.
How so?
Well, if you treat a low interdependence group like a high interdependence team, you waste time, resources those process losses again.
Right.
But if you manage a true team, like just a collection of individuals, you miss out on that synergy, that potential. Expectations aren't met. Performance suffers.
So getting the structure right is step one. But let's talk about healthy team dynamics.
Yeah.
Why are they so crucial for the whole organization? It feels like more than just keeping people content.
Oh, absolutely. Healthy dynamics directly impact so much. We see clear links to better team performance overall, more creativity, more innovation, higher productivity. Teams with good dynamics communicate better, more openly, and employee morale and engagement significantly higher.
Even stress levels.
Can be lower, yeah.
Yeah.
In well-functioning teams.
That's like a great positive cycle.
Yeah.
But what about when the dynamics are, bad?
Yeah, unfortunately, the opposite is true too. Poor dynamics show up in lots of damaging ways. Poor communication causes errors, misunderstandings.
Right.
You might have dominating personalities shutting others down, unresolved conflicts just festering, lack of clarity on goals or roles, people not pulling their weight, micromanagement killing trust, resistance to change, no accountability. It gets messy.
That paints a pretty grim picture.
It can be. And like we hinted, dynamics tend to be cyclical. Good dynamics lead to good outcomes, which reinforces the good dynamics and upward spiral.
Like trust builds open communication, which solves problems better.
Exactly. Which boosts morale, reinforces trust. It builds on itself.
And the negative loop.
Same idea, but downward. Poor communication breeds conflict, erodes trust, which makes communication even worse.
Makes collaboration impossible.
Pretty much. Performance drops, frustration grows, people disengage, a downward spiral. And that's why spotting issues early and intervening is so important. Small positive changes can kickstart a good cycle. Ignoring bad dynamics just lets things get worse.
This is really clarifying. You mentioned indicators of healthy versus unhealthy dynamics. Can we dig into some specifics there? What should people look for?
Sure. Let's take communication. Healthy teams, it's clear, open, people share ideas freely, they listen. Unhealthy teams, confusion, withheld info, frustration.
Okay.
Goals. Healthy teams have shared goals. Real commitment. Unhealthy. Goals are murky, maybe even conflicting.
What about respect and trust?
Huge difference. Healthy teams have it. Unhealthy, suspicion, undermining each other. Conflict is another big one. Healthy teams see it as a chance to grow, resolve things constructively.
Yeah, not healthy.
Either it festers, becomes destructive, or it's just avoided entirely so nothing gets solved.
Psychological safety that keeps coming up seems like a really key indicator.
Absolutely central. In safe teams, people feel okay taking risks, admitting mistakes, voicing different views without fear.
And the opposite is fear.
Yeah, a real fear of speaking up, of negative consequences. Then look at contributions. Healthy teams share the load, have shared responsibility. Unhealthy, unequal workloads, lack of accountability.
Decision-making, too.
Definitely. Healthy teams are collaborative, value different perspective. Unhealthy, maybe one person dominates, or decisions are autocratic.
Right.
And finally, the overall environment. Healthy is supportive, inclusive. Unhealthy might have cliques, exclusion, even an us versus them feel. Healthy teams adapt. Unhealthy ones resist change.
Wow, that contrast really paints a clear picture. Okay, we've talked a lot about dynamics. Let's pivot slightly to the other key piece.
Yeah.
Collaboration. What's the essence of workplace collaboration, psychologically speaking?
Yeah, so workplace collaboration is way more than just, people working near each other. It's about employees actively working together towards a common goal. The hallmarks are clear communication and effective knowledge sharing. It benefits the company, sure, but also the individuals. And psychologically, the fascinating part is the mindset shift.
How so?
It requires moving from an individual I focus to a collective we. A real sense of shared ownership, shared success.
So it's deeper than just cooperation, like dividing tasks.
Exactly. Cooperation is more task division. You do your bit, I do mine, we put it together. Collaboration is much more integrated.
Like weaving things together.
Yeah, co-creating solutions, mutual adjustments, ideas bouncing off each other dynamically. And for that to happen, you absolutely need trust and psychological safety.
There it is again.
Can't escape it. Without that safety net, people won't share risky ideas, won't admit they don't know something, won't have the open talks needed for real innovation.
So cooperation is like a relay race. Collaboration is more like a jazz band.
That's a great analogy. Yeah, improvising together, building on each other's riffs.
Cool. So what are the underlying psychological drivers that make collaboration really work? And what benefits flow from that?
Well, collaboration taps into some really basic human needs: connection, belonging, having a shared purpose. These are powerful intrinsic motivators.
Right.
When people feel their contribution matters, that it's part of something bigger, their engagement just skyrockets. And the tangible benefits, they're huge.
Like what?
Enhanced communication, obviously. Studies show collaborative teams can be like 50% more effective at getting tasks done than individuals alone.
Wow, 50%.
Yeah, and employee engagement. More than twice as likely to be fully engaged in collaborative settings. Better morale, better well-being, too. People in connected teams report much higher emotional well-being.
So it feels good, basically.
It does, and that fuels results. More innovation, better decisions, higher team performance, more employee satisfaction. It all connects.
So those internal psychological boosts, feeling connected, valued, they actually drive the bottom line results like productivity.
Precisely. When collaboration feels good, supportive, safe, it fuels that intrinsic motivation. People put in more effort, they're more open with ideas, more resilient when things get tough.
Yep.
Those positive feelings directly help the thinking processes needed for great performance, creativity, critical analysis. So when we want better collaboration, we can't just focus on tools or processes.
Need to focus on the experience.
Exactly. Make it psychologically safe, rewarding, supportive. That's how you unlock its full potential.
This is such a great framework. Okay, let's go deeper now into the specific psychological factors shaping both dynamics and collaboration. You said these can be catalysts or roadblocks.
That's right. Let's start with the foundations, the pillars of positive dynamics. And the first, maybe the most crucial, is psychological safety.
Okay, define that again for us.
It's that shared belief in the team that it's safe to take interpersonal risks. Meaning you can speak up with ideas, raise concerns, admit you messed up, ask questions, even challenge things, without fearing you'll be shut down, embarrassed, or punished.
It's not about being nicey nice then.
Not at all. It's not avoiding conflict. It's about creating an environment of candor where you can learn, where productive disagreement is okay, even welcomed.
Why is that feeling of safety so fundamental? What does it actually do?
The benefits are huge. Teams with high psychological safety, they make fewer mistakes. And when they do, they catch them faster.
Interesting.
You get way more ideas because people aren't afraid to suggest something unconventional. That leads to faster delivery, less burnout, more inclusion because diverse views are actually valued.
Right.
Ultimately, it drives creativity, innovation, problem solving, engagement, motivation, cohesion, trust.
Yeah.
It underpins so much.
You mentioned a model with different levels of safety.
Yeah, Timothy Clark talks about 4 stages. First, inclusion safety, just feeling accepted. Then learner safety, it's okay to ask questions, make mistakes while learning.
Okay.
Then contributor safety, feeling safe to offer your skills and ideas. And finally, challenger safety, where it's safe to question things, even authority, to make things better or flag a problem.
Challenger safety. That sounds like a high bar. So what can leaders practically do to build this safety?
Amy Edmondson, who's done tons of research here, suggests 3 key things leaders should do. First, frame the work as learning, not just execution, especially when things are complex or uncertain. Acknowledge that failures will happen, focus on learning from them.
Okay, makes sense.
Second, leaders need to show their own fallibility, admit mistakes, admit uncertainty. That makes it safe for others.
Model it.
Exactly. And third, be curious. Ask lots of genuine questions. Show that all input is valued. Create a need for everyone's voice.
It really sounds like psychological safety isn't just a nice extra. It's like the essential ingredient.
Absolutely. You can think of it as a meta factor. Without it, other good things like diversity or clear goals might not deliver their full potential.
Oh, so?
Well, you could have a diverse team with clear goals, but if people don't feel safe sharing their unique views or challenging assumptions, you lose the benefit of that diversity. So yeah, building safety is often job number 1.
Got it. Okay, pillar number 2, the power of shared vision. How does having that common goal impact dynamics?
A clear, compelling, shared vision where everyone gets it and buys into it, it really unifies the team, gives direction beyond just daily tasks.
Strengthens team spirit.
Massively. Builds camaraderie. It also makes leadership easier. Leaders can focus on guiding, not constantly trying to get everyone on the same page. Shared goals also mean more transparent communication gives you a common reference point, and it naturally boosts accountability, encourages learning as you work together towards it. Ultimately, it helps build a positive, cohesive culture.
It sounds like it taps into something deeper than just a to-do list.
It really does. It creates a collective identity, a psychological pull. It boosts that intrinsic motivation, resilience when things get tough.
Connects to those needs like belonging, purpose.
Exactly. When there's a meaningful why behind the team's work rooted in that vision, people connect to it, linking individual work to that bigger goal. That increases commitment far more than just external rewards often can.
So leaders need to really communicate that why.
Continuously, and ideally co-create the goals with the team in the first place.
Okay, next pillar, clarity and commitment. Specifically around roles and responsibilities. Why is that so vital?
Oh, role clarity is fundamental for efficiency. When everyone knows what they're supposed to do, what their colleagues do, and how it all fits together.
Less confusion.
Way less confusion, prevents overlap, stops things falling through the cracks, avoids conflicts that come from ambiguity. People can just get on with their work confidently.
And commitment. Accountability.
Yeah, that's the flip side. A shared commitment to upholding standards, team norms, fulfilling your part. Accountability reinforces positive dynamics because it creates a sense of fairness. Everyone pulls their weight, shares ownership of success and setbacks.
And how does this clarity and commitment affect morale? Seems important.
It's huge for morale because it connects to perceived fairness, ambiguity, or feeling like contributions are unequal. That breeds resentment, undermines cohesion.
Right.
Lack of accountability can lead to that feeling of, hey, I'm doing all the work here, the sucker effect.
The sucker effect.
Yeah, where people who feel exploited might consciously pull back their own effort to try and restore some balance.
I see.
But clarity and accountability, that creates transparency. It's easier to see contributions fairly, which builds trust, makes people want to contribute fully. So it's not just operational, it's critical for morale and engagement.
Makes sense. Okay, another key pillar, the interplay of communication and trust. How do they feed each other?
They're totally intertwined. Two sides of the same coin, really. Effective communication, clear, open, honest, active listening, really trying to understand each other.
Yeah.
And mutual trust, believing in each other's reliability, competence, good intentions. Communication is how you build trust.
How so?
When people communicate transparently, share info openly, listen respectfully, that signals respect, builds belief and reliability. And conversely, high trust enables better communication.
Did you feel safer?
Exactly.
Yeah.
When trust is high, people are more willing to be vulnerable, share sensitive info, have candid talks without fear of judgment.
So it's like a cycle. They reinforce each other.
Precisely. It's bidirectional. Low trust leads to guarded communication, withholding info, misunderstandings, which erodes trust further. A negative loop.
And the positive loop.
Good communication builds trust, which leads to even better, more open communication. It's fundamental to a team's resilience. So working on one building trust through actions or improving communication skills will almost certainly boost the other.
Now let's talk leadership's influence. Clearly, leaders shape the team's dynamics.
Oh, profoundly.
Yeah.
Leadership style, autocratic, democratic, transformational, whatever, it impacts everything. Communication, decision-making, collaboration, morale, creativity, engagement, all of it.
And good leaders adapt.
Absolutely. They adapt their style to the team's needs, where it is in its development. They play a huge role in fostering psychological safety, setting norms, helping resolve conflict effectively.
You used a great analogy earlier, a leader as a thermostat. Can you expand on that?
Right. An effective leader is like a thermostat, constantly sensing the team's temperature, its climate, and making adjustments to keep it optimal.
Because teams change.
Exactly. Teams go through stages, face different challenges. Each stage, each challenge might need a different approach. A new team might need more direction. A high-performing team needs more autonomy.
So a rigid leader hinders things.
Probably yes. If they stick to one style, regardless of the team's needs. Effective leadership is about diagnosing what the team needs now and being agile enough to provide it.
Okay, next pillar. Harnessing strength in differences. Diversity and inclusion.
Yeah, diversity, different backgrounds, skills, perspectives, experiences, when you combine that with genuine inclusion.
Where everyone feels valued and part of it.
Exactly. That combination significantly boosts team effectiveness. It fuels creativity, better problem solving, more robust decisions, higher engagement, helps the team understand diverse markets too.
And there's data backing this up.
Lots of it. Studies consistently show diverse companies, diverse leadership teams, tend to outperform less diverse ones financially and in innovation.
But just having diversity isn't enough, right? We touched on this.
Precisely. Psychological safety is the key that unlocks diversity's potential. Diversity brings different views to the table, but inclusion ensures they're actually heard and valued.
Otherwise, the benefit is lost.
Largely lost, yes. If people don't feel safe expressing unique views or challenging norms, diversity doesn't translate into better outcomes. It can even cause friction without inclusion and safety. So fostering inclusion is just as critical, maybe more so, than just recruiting for diversity.
Makes sense. Finally, let's zoom in on the individual and the team. How do individual psychological traits affect the whole group?
Each person's makeup personality, emotional intelligence, EQ, cognitive style, motivations, all plays a role in the team's dynamic and effectiveness.
Like the big 5 personality traits.
Yeah, openness, conscientiousness, extroversion, agreeableness, neuroticism, they influence interactions, work styles, contributions. Emotional intelligence affects collaboration, communication, conflict handling, stress management, even leadership potential.
Cognitive style.
Yeah.
Like how people think.
Exactly. Analytical, creative, practical thinkers. Having cognitive diversity can lead to much richer, more innovative solutions. And motivation, intrinsic drives like purpose or mastery, extrinsic ones like rewards that impacts effort and engagement.
It's a complex mix.
The very intricate interplay of all these individual factors shapes the collective dynamic.
Okay, we've covered the positive pillars. Now let's flip the coin. What are the common derailers of team success? The pitfalls.
Right, there are several key things that can trip teams up. Let's start with some collective ones. Social loafing and the perils of groupthink.
Social loafing, that's when people slack off in a group, put in less effort than they would alone.
Exactly that. They exert less effort on a collective task than they would individually. Several things contribute. Feeling anonymous, lack of individual accountability, unclear roles, big group size, diffusion of responsibility. There are theories, too, the free rider idea, where people slack if they think others will pick it up, and the sucker effect we mentioned, avoiding being the one doing all the work.
And the main impact is just lower productivity.
Lower productivity, lower motivation, yeah. It drags the whole team down.
And groupthink. Sounds like the dark side of cohesion.
That's a good way to put it. Groupthink is when the desire for harmony or consensus overrides rational decision-making. People prioritize agreement over critical thinking.
What causes that?
High cohesion, isolation from outside views, a directive leader pushing their opinion, no clear decision process, high stress, a very similar group of people.
And you can spot it.
There are symptoms. Feeling invulnerable, believing the group is inherently moral, rationalizing away problems, stereotyping outsiders, pressuring dissenters, people censoring themselves, mind guards protecting the group from challenging info.
Wow. And the result?
Bad decisions. Limited alternatives considered, poor information gathering, no contingency plans, serious flaws.
So both social loafing and groupthink seem linked to something missing.
You got it. Often linked to a lack of psychological safety and individual accountability. Social loafing. People feel their contribution won't matter or be noticed. Groupthink. People fear speaking out against the group.
So the fix involves boosting accountability and safety.
Exactly. Making individual contributions visible and valued, and creating a climate where critical thinking and dissent are actually encouraged.
Okay, another big derailer. The corrosive effects of unresolved conflict and poor communication.
Yeah, these two are tightly linked and really damaging. Conflict isn't always bad. Task conflict, managed well, can be productive. But unresolved conflict.
What does that do?
Increases stress, anxiety, weakens relationships, erodes trust, leads to burnout, lower job satisfaction, lower productivity, more absenteeism, turnover. It can create cliques, reduce cohesion.
Nasty stuff. And poor communication.
Leads to confusion about goals, roles, deadlines, duplicated effort, missed targets, frustration, loss of purpose, tense environment, low morale, lower productivity, lower quality work.
Sounds like they feed each other in a bad way.
They absolutely do. It's often a vicious cycle. Conflict leads to bad communication, which leads to more conflict. It just destroys trust and psychological safety, making it impossible to fix the original problems.
So teams need skills for both communication and conflict resolution.
Crucial. Organizations need to proactively equip them.
Okay, final derailer. Navigating power imbalances. That sounds subtle but significant.
It is. Power, the ability to influence, is always present. Formal power comes from position, title. Informal power comes from personality, expertise, relationships, even privilege or bias.
And unchecked power is the problem.
Exactly. When power imbalances are negative or unchecked, you see skewed communication maybe only flowing one way, people afraid to speak up to power. It undermines safety, stifles collaboration and ideas, lowers engagement, can create a toxic culture.
Informal power seems tricky to handle.
It really is. Formal power is visible on the org chart. Informal power is often hidden, operating under the surface, but can be just as influential, if not more so.
So how do you address it?
You have to look beyond titles. Promote inclusive decision-making where expertise and contribution are valued over tenure or just being assertive. Create ways for everyone to contribute. Ensure decisions are based on merit, not just who has the most clout.
This is super helpful for spotting potential problems. Okay, let's shift again. Let's look through some theoretical lenses to analyze team development and roles. Tuckman's stages came up earlier.
Right, Bruce Tuckman's model, very well known. 5 stages teams often go through. Forming, initial getting together, polite, tentative, looking for guidance.
Okay.
Storming, disagreements, power struggles, clashes over roles, leadership, can be bumpy.
The tricky part.
Often, yeah. Then norming. Conflicts start resolving, cohesion builds, norms and values emerge, trust grows, communication opens up.
Getting somewhere.
Then performing. Mature stage, functional structure, high interdependence, focus on goals, clear roles, effective problem solving, productive.
The ideal state.
The goal, yeah. And finally, adjourning. Team wraps up, disbands. Can involve a mix of emotions.
And it's not always a straight line through these.
Definitely not. Teams can get stuck, regress if new challenges pop up. But the model's really useful for leaders.
How so?
Helps you diagnose where your team is and adapt your style. Forming might need more direction. Performing needs more autonomy. It guides interventions.
Got it. And the other framework was Belbin's team role theory.
Yes, Dr. Meredith Belbin. He identified 9 typical behavioral patterns, team roles, based on how people tend to contribute in a team. Not personality, but behavior.
9 roles.
9 roles, grouped into 3 types. Action-oriented, shaper, implementer, completer, finisher. People-oriented, coordinator, team worker, resource investigator. And cerebral or thinking roles. Plant, monitor, evaluator, specialist.
And each has strengths and weaknesses.
Exactly. Each role brings key strengths, but also what Belbin called allowable weaknesses. The downsides often linked to those strengths, generally tolerated if the person's contributing well in their role.
So it's not just about having technical skills.
No, Belbin argues effective teams need a good balance of these behavioral roles. You need the thinkers, the doers, the people.
And understanding these helps.
Helps individuals understand their own tendencies, improve self-awareness. Helps leaders compose teams, assign tasks strategically. A balanced team is more likely to cover all the bases and succeed. You can also use it to diagnose problems like, are we missing a good monitor or evaluator, kind of thing.
These frameworks offer really useful ways to think about teams. Okay, let's get practical again. Let's talk evidence-based interventions. What can organizations actually do to build better dynamics and collaboration?
All right, lots of actionable stuff here. For building psychological safety, leaders need to model vulnerability themselves, set clear expectations for respect, actively value different views.
Framework as learning.
Framework as learning, yes. Create a feedback culture. Use specific exercises, sometimes things designed to build trust and empathy. And remember, it's ongoing, not a one-off workshop. Needs to be part of the culture.
What about specific interventions for optimizing communication?
Fostering active listening is key. Setting up clear channels and norms. Maybe providing skills training, listening, assertiveness, cross-cultural awareness. Implementing constructive feedback mechanisms is huge.
How to make feedback instructive.
Focus on behavior, not personality. Be specific. Talk about the impact. Make it a two-way conversation aimed at improvement. And how you give feedback matters just as much as what you say.
Okay. And turning conflict into something constructive. How do you manage that shift?
It's about changing the mindset. Conflict isn't a battle. It's a chance to understand and find better solutions. Promote respectful communication during conflict. Focus on issues, not blame. Encourage listening. Value different views. Use structured feedback like the SBI model: situation, behavior, impact. Train people in mediation, root cause analysis.
Team building activities get a bad rap sometimes. How do you make strategic team building actually work?
Needs to be strategic, not just fun for fun's sake. Make activities relevant to the team's actual work or challenges. Ensure they're inclusive, engaging, truly collaborative. Have clear goals. Make sure it feels safe to participate.
And critically,
Debrief afterwards.
debrief.
Yeah, talk about what happened, what was learned, and how to apply it back on the job. Focus on developing real skills. Motivation, dynamics, conflict resolution, flexibility, problem solving, creativity, communication, leadership. And again, sustained effort beats one-off events.
Right. And finally, leveraging individual differences. How do leaders do that effectively?
Requires really understanding your people. Their personalities, maybe using something like the Big Five. Their emotional intelligence.
Yeah.
Their cognitive styles, how they think. Their motivators, intrinsic and extrinsic.
And then use that knowledge.
Yes. Tailor feedback. Assign tasks that play to strengths. Consider EQ in communication and conflict. Accommodate different thinking styles in problem solving. Align motivations with goals. The leader becomes like a talent architect.
Talent architect, I like that. Strategically putting the pieces together.
Exactly. Composing the team and assigning roles to maximize strengths and minimize friction.
These are fantastic, practical strategies. Now, we know work context vary hugely. How do these principles need to be adapted for specialized environments, like remote teams or cross-cultural ones?
Great question. The core principles hold, but the application needs adapting. For remote and hybrid teams, you have to be much more intentional about communication.
So,
Minimize tool overload, maybe? Deliberately create connection points, formal and informal. Make virtual meetings super inclusive. Fostering culture needs conscious effort, virtual events, actively seeking remote input.
Collaboration tools help.
User-friendly tools help, yes, but also encouraging open dialogue, virtual team building. And supporting well-being is key. Clear policies, autonomy, prioritizing tasks, ensuring safety, equal opportunities regardless of location. You have to deliberately build what happens organically in person.
Makes sense. What about cross-cultural teams? Needs cultural intelligence, right?
Absolutely. Cultural intelligence, or CQ. This means tailored communication training, actively building trust through consistent behavior, truthfulness, respect, transparency, keeping commitments, practicing cultural sensitivity, flexible policies, adapting leadership style, handling conflict with awareness of cultural differences.
And building personal bonds.
Crucial, making an effort to connect personally. And CQ isn't just awareness, it's knowledge, motivation, and adaptive strategies. And again, psychological safety is vital for open dialogue across cultures.
Okay, and finally, steering teams through organizational change. That's always tough.
Very tough. The key is prioritizing people. Transparent, continuous communication is vital. The why, what, how, make it two-way, listen to feedback.
Leadership style matters here too.
Hugely. Empathetic, collaborative leadership, providing support, training for new ways of working, managing resistance constructively, building momentum, celebrating small wins helps. Setting collaborative goals during the change can refocus the team.
Seems like managing the emotional impact is key.
It is. Addressing people's needs for information, control, support, and safety during that uncertainty is paramount.
It's clear adaptability is crucial. Okay, let's bring this home. Why does all this investment in dynamics and collaboration really matter? What are the tangible returns organizations see?
The returns are significant and measurable. First, boosting productivity and efficiency. Collaborative teams solve problems faster, finish tasks quicker. Research shows high-performing orgs prioritize collaboration. High EQ teams, teams with role clarity, they see big productivity gains. Collaboration tools can even shorten project times.
What about innovation and creative problem solving?
Huge impact. Collaboration, safety, diversity, they fuel innovation. Diverse teams are often called hotbeds of creativity. Companies with diverse management report higher innovation revenue. Diverse teams develop more features, make better decisions. The data is pretty compelling.
And the impact on the people themselves, well-being, engagement, retention.
Positive dynamics directly improve morale, job satisfaction, engagement. They reduce stress. Trust is a huge factor in retention. High-trust companies often have half the turnover. Diversity and inclusion efforts also boost engagement and retention. Culture, shaped by dynamics, is a major reason people stay or leave. And high engagement links directly to higher profits and lower turnover.
And the ultimate bottom line, sustained project and organizational success.
Absolutely. Good dynamics, strong collaboration, they are central to project success and long-term organizational health. Strong relationships, cohesion, leadership drive project outcomes, multidisciplinary teams working well see better results, and diverse leadership consistently links to better financial performance, higher earnings, higher profitability compared to competitors.
Wow. So these benefits aren't just isolated wins.
No, they're multiplicative. They create a positive, self-reinforcing cycle. It's why investing in team health isn't just an expense. It's a core strategic investment with a potentially massive return.
That really drives home the importance. Okay, as we wrap up this deep dive, what's the single biggest takeaway for our listeners?
I'd say the fundamental point is that team dynamics and collaboration aren't soft skills. They are deeply psychological and absolutely fundamental to success today.
We've covered the pillars of healthy teams, the derailers.
Right, and the key is understanding this is ongoing work. It needs sustained investment in these evidence-based strategies, a continuous focus on creating that positive, safe environment.
But the payoff is there.
Clearly. The tangible returns in productivity, innovation, well-being, retention, overall success, they make it a strategic imperative, not just a nice-to-have.
So for you, the learner, listening right now, as you think about all this, maybe consider a team you're part of. What's one psychological principle we talked about today? Just one thing, that if you or your team really focus on it, might create a real positive shift.
Yeah, a great question to ponder.
We really encourage you to keep exploring these ideas. Think about how to apply them to build truly thriving, high-performing teams in your own world. Thanks for diving deep with us.